So you're ready for your first car, but you're not quite sure what to get? You know you love Fast and Furious and Japanese car culture. The problem is sometimes these vehicles can be a little out of your reach, especially if daddy isn't helping finance them. All that being said, I've sat with a few social influencers and car content creators over the last few weeks and compiled the most epic list of first Japanese cars that you could buy or perhaps get your daddy to buy. So we're looking at two options here. The first being a vehicle that you could possibly buy with your own money up to around 80,000 Rand. Now bearing in mind this vehicle does need to be somewhat reliable as it is your first car, and it also kind of needs to fit into that cool Japanese car space. What do you think? I'm going to let you drive a Hyundai. The second option being, what would daddy buy you? Look, not everyone is fortunate enough to have a daddy that can just whip out his checkbook at any given moment. But it is a reality to some, and I thought it'd be funny just to include this in the video. Right, starting with my own recommendation, I'm going to have to say the Nissan S13 200SX. Standard models needing a little bit of TLC and some bodywork can be found for under 80k. Leaving you some room to play for modifications and to make the car look cool. In standard form, it houses a CA18 DET engine, which is a 1.8 litre turbocharged motor, which is enough to have a little bit of fun and slidey boy action. Now, I'm not saying pull the handbrake at every corner on the way to work or to college, but you could still have some recreational fun at the odd track day or skid pan. Also, there are endless modifications that can be done to either beef up your suspension, make the car a little bit quicker, or make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. Now, if daddy had to buy me a car, I would definitely have to say something reasonable like the Toyota 86. It's a really great car. It is a true driver's car. It has a little bit of an underpowered engine with that Subaru Flat 4, but it's just enough to still have some fun and not kill yourself. Looks alone make this a potential future classic, but you kind of wouldn't care, would you, since daddy bought it anyway. Kicking it off with our first creator recommendation, we have Ciro from cars.co.za.
So, to answer your questions about Japanese cars, if I was going to buy Japanese under 80k, I think I'd probably buy an old Honda Jazz. Those things are just so useful. You know, they're not very sexy, but very reliable, very practical. If my dad was going to buy me a Japanese car and money was no option, you know, let's just say my dad was like, I don't know, Patrice Motsepe or something, then I definitely ask for a Skyline, maybe a nice R34. I think that would do me fine. Cool. Alrighty, cheers.
Thanks for the insight and valuable information, but a Honda Jazz? I guess you're probably the most sensible of the lot here. Next up, I have a written statement from a renowned photographer and videographer in the Cape Town area with a massive YouTube subscription of 18,000 subscribers, Mr. Akeel Hassan. A car I'd buy myself would be the last shape MR2 we got locally with the 1ZZ, just because it has good reliability and some sportiness in the form of its handling. If my dad were to buy me a car, he'd still go buy me a Conquest or a Corolla Sprinter, even if he had more money to spend. Your dad kinda sounds like he's taught you a lot of life lessons, like go buy your own sports car. Then giving us his recommendation is TavzUnleaded, an Instagram, YouTuber and TikTok personality from the Johannesburg area.
Hey NelKel and everyone watching at home, thank you for having me on today's episode. Now if I had to choose my first JDM car under 80,000 Rand, I'd have to go with the 1996 Honda Civic Hatchback. I just feel like this vehicle has so much modifying potential and you can build quite a beastly car with a low budget. Now if I had to choose a car that daddy would buy me, I'd have to go with a midnight purple R34 Skyline GTR. I mean, do I even have to say much about this car, guys? Just look at it. It's so beautiful.
R34 midnight purple? That's about 2.5-3 million Rand nowadays. Can your dad please adopt me? Next up, we have a man who some say is more JDM than myself, more Japanese than a copy of Initial D First Stage manga. A man who... Screw it, let's just hear what he has to say. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony T, an influencer from Johannesburg.
Okay, so the best Japanese car for an 18-year-old to buy under 80k would be not a Honda Civic, it would be a Nissan S200SX. 200SX, it's this one here, but the older version. Hands down, best car to buy. Daddy would buy a Subaru, which is fantastic, but it's not under 80k. Or a Mitsubishi Evo, which is not under 80k. So your best bet is, depending on your driving style and what you want to do, you would possibly want to go sideways buy one of those, but the older version, the S13. If you were more about cruising around and looking good in a car and making a car very loud, Honda Civic for the win. 86 is a definite no-no from me. They are slow.
Okay, so you're not into the 86 because it's slow, but at least we still have one thing in common, that S13 200SX. Then we have another written statement coming from two Cape Town influencers by the name of VAD Productions and Riding the Reaper. VAD Productions says, so a Toyota Corolla 160i GLE is a nice first car to own. Firstly, the motor is super reliable, parts are easily accessible, nice power steering, AC, etc. Motor is not lazy as it is a 1600. It's also very easy to make it stand out with a few cosmetic touches which shouldn't break your bank account. Riding the Reaper has said, my first car for under 80k would be an R31 Skyline and my second choice would be a 300ZX. Well, it seems like all the Cape Town girls are so sensible when it comes to vehicle ownership. Next up, a man so obsessed with the MX-5 that he actually changed his middle name to Miata. Just kidding, but this is Zach from NerdWorksMedia.
The best Japanese second-hand car for an 18-year-old is a first car, and why? A Mazda Miata. And I'll tell you why, because it's very reliable, they're easy-ish to fix, and parts are quite easy to get, depending on what. They're easy to drive, there's very few blind spots and stuff. Fantastic first car, especially for a JDM enthusiast, a car enthusiast. If Dad had to buy me a car, what would Dad get me? I still think, honestly, a first-gen Mazda Miata, because, to be completely honest, it's that good. They small cars, they have a lot more storage space than actually people give them credit for. They're fantastic cars, I don't know what else to say. So my answer for both questions is actually a first-gen Mazda MX-5.
Thanks, Zach, for telling us about the MX-5s. Nobody saw that coming. And finally, we have Javon Francis from Ultimate Motoring, a man who has sat in more supercars this year alone than any production worker at a Ferrari factory.
What's up, Nelson and all you NelKel fans? Alright, cool. Under 80k, first car, Japanese, would have to be obviously a Honda of some sort, but I know everybody's going to be saying that. So I'm going to say Toyota Runnit 160 RT. Super cool, super fun, easy to maintain. Love it. Secondly, a car my dad would get me probably be a Datsun 1200. My dad loved those cars. I love those cars. I think they're super cool. And yeah, that's my take on it. Javon Francis signing out.
So there you have it, everyone. Those are hopefully some sensible recommendations for your first ever Japanese car, whether you buy it yourself or whether daddy buys it for you. Now please show some love to the creators in this video. I've linked everybody in the description. Go give them some support. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.